各位女士、各位先生，欢迎莅临。
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 2022 GMA Festival, the networking session on the second day. We have organized 3 networking sessions, inviting international buyers, curators, and also stakeholders in the gaming and music industry to share with us their experiences and increase business opportunities for everyone. This afternoon, we will focus on game and music. I would like to welcome the host and also the panelists onto the stage. Our host today is Mr. Qing Xuzhang Wi-Fi. He's the person in charge of Wi-Fi Music Limited. He's a producer, creator, composer, and person in charge of Wi-Fi Music, leader of Night Keepers, and author under the pen name of Sleepy Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is great at depicting feelings of unexpected loss or being an outsider with music or words. And he has worked with many indie games. He has been nominated in many awards. And currently, he is nominated by the Taipei Film Festival. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the host of this session. I'm very happy to have this opportunity to discuss with 6 panelists. I think we can take a more relaxed approach because games should be quite relaxing. So that's why I think music and games heals all wants. And I've always loved games. I've always loved music. And I use games and music to heal all the anxieties and the sorrows in life. So I thought that if I can write music and play games and make money at the same time, what should I do? Well, I was very lucky. Some people introduced me to start writing for scores for games. And I found that actually I'm playing games and playing music at the same time. My parents thought I was not studying. I said, no, I'm actually making money because I have to play the games in order to write the music. So I think I have a very rich life. I can use music and games to support my life. We have 6 panelists today, and they come from all sectors in the gaming industry. 17 years ago, they probably have made up their mind to found their own company. Some people have worked in New York. Some people have been working in Tokyo. Some people have been integrating online and offline settings. Some are also writing scores for games. So I would like to welcome our singer today, and let us relax you a bit.
第一首歌是我们帮
The first song is for Ray Ark. It's a very important transition song. When Ray Ark Music was established, it was still a very small studio in Jingshan South Road, and we were an outsourced team from Ray Ark. They have not expanded yet, so from 8 of the demo songs, 4 of them were produced by us. So it's like a fantasy game. It's just played on a cell phone. So these music have actually been played in many cell phones around the world. I think it's very meaningful because it's presented in a gaming form, and they're not restricted by the language used. This is called Bring the Light. It's more fantasy. It's like a fantasy, and it's actually used in a game. It's one of the songs in a game, although it's not the main theme, but it's a very important song. And we hope that you can relax and imagine that you're dancing in your own room. So this is the song, Bring Your Light.
Cup of fear, ready start to dream, swimming with the crowd like we're on the sea. Nothing's gonna blow away our tears.感谢这魔术，不想回复也没人能说不。你的问题划过就清楚，忘记了痛苦，撑过就算输，过1分钟就少1分钟的痛苦。24小时之后，快乐和难过都不会再重复，你又何必让自己陷入？每个回24小时之后，关于谁的虚伪再也不能读，限制我们悲伤的时数。谢谢。
谢谢。比较特别。
It's quite unique that I don't know whether anyone has played Demo or Citus. We will be singing one of the songs from the first version of Demo, and that song is called Undo. The Demo had a second version, and we're now writing music for Demo 2. The next song is quite interesting because I think games are not just played on cell phones or consoles or computer. I think it will be a more what we call a soul technology. So it's like a chatting robot. It's like an AI embedded in Facebook. In some markets, there are these kind of robots telling you where to go, or there's a messenger or guided tour telling you what's on exhibition. And this next song we actually send is the result of a creation. So we send a message at 11 p.m. for a whole year, and then we actually collect all the messages that these netizens give us. So it's like a song that's created from all these messages. And this is the first time that I've shared the process of writing this song to you in a public space. And I hope that when you're playing a game, it's not just trying to blow off steam. You can also try to heal your soul. So I'm giving this song to everybody who has to burn the midnight oil in order to complete your game.
谢。
谢谢。
Thank you. This song is like a game because it's comprised of more than 10,000 messages from chatting robots. And I think we were able to use this song to be nominated by the Golden Melody Award twice. So I think this might be a future trend. We still have a bit of time left, and I said that I asked everybody whether or not you've heard the song from Demo. Well, we're gonna introduce this song. So if you've played Demo before, you know that it's a musical rhythm game. So when you're playing the songs, when you're playing the tunes, the tree on the keyboard will start to grow. And I think music and games can actually bring a lot of power. And I think this is what we're trying to bring here. And I hope that in the future we do have this opportunity to be commissioned by you in the future. So you can come search us on social media.
对，这首歌叫做
This song is called Undo.
对，它其实是蛮特别的。
It's actually a very interesting song because Demo had English and Japanese lyrics, but now we're using Chinese.
Let's don't do anything they want us to do. I just want to crack your head. Let's rock like CD ground rock with better recording quality. I want to hold your hand. Try down，电视，拆掉声音，拆掉手机，拆掉记忆，拆掉，拆掉，拆掉，拆掉。谢谢。
Thank you. I remember when I was composing this song because it's in Mandarin, so there are more than one third of the 1 million users actually were very unhappy. We wanted to keep a distance ourselves from social media and also games, but actually in Japan there are actually a lot of discussions. So I thought that I had the confidence to continue to produce songs that are atypical. This last piece is to pave the road and lay the red carpet to our panelists later. Some of our panelists have a lot of experience working in studios, and I think this is a great opportunity. I'd like to thank Christina and Harry and the GMA because you've worked so hard. So I'm going to present this song to everybody who has gaming soul. It's a very classic song. It's not old, but it's a classic song. I did not, I already know this song before I started to actually compose music. I've played a Final Fantasy VIII, and there's a theme song. It's actually quite well known called Eyes on Me. It's sung by Wang Fei. And I thought that there are actually classmates who listened to the song and then started playing games. But then there are also people who played the games first and went to listen to that song. So it's like a crossover. They're two different communities, but they crossed over to the other realm. So I think that's why the power of music and games can multiply. And there were fewer songs that had this iconic status later. So I'm going to present this a segment of the song to you and present this to everybody who has the soul of gaming. This song is called Eyes on Me.
Never sing my songs on the stage on my own. I never said my words, wishing they would be heard. I saw you smiling at me. Was it real or just my fantasy? You always be there in the corner of this tiny little bar. My last night here for you. Same old song, just once more. My last night here with you. Maybe yes, maybe no. I saw you smiling at me. Was it real or just my fantasy? You always be there in the corner of this tiny little barn. Last night here with you. Same old song, just once more. My last night here with you. Maybe yes, maybe no. I kinda liked it your way. How you shyly place your eyes on me. You always be there in the corner of this time. Darling, so there you are, with that look on your face, as if you never heard, as if you never doubt. Shall I be the one for you, who pinches you softly but sure? If frowning sure, and then I will know that you are no dreamer. Darling, so there you are, who pinches you softly but sure. If frowning sure, and then I will know that you are no dreamer. 谢谢。
谢谢大家，谢谢我们守夜人。
Thank you very much. We'd like to thank Nightkeeper. Now we will move on to the panel discussion. We're Nightkeepers, and we hope that we can continue to promote gaming, music. Now we would like to introduce our first speaker. We'll now take down our instruments. In a lot of performances, we also showcase gaming music, there are a lot of original music. Before the beginning of this panel, I was chatting with some of our panelists. Our first panelist is Mr. George Song, and we would like to invite him to the stage. He's working at Software International Corporation and subsidiaries. I think this company is based in Kaohsiung, and I've worked for music multimedia before. It actually has a very large recording studio, and I know that there are also 6 smaller recording studios, and you can record, for example, podcasts in these recording studios. So I think George will introduce these recording studios to us later. Let's welcome Mr. Sang.
谢谢主持人。
Thank you, Wi-Fi. Dear producers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm still feeling quite emotional after hearing the few songs. It almost felt like we were looking at a prom where the 2 protagonists are trying to dance and they're not really in step. They're so young and clumsy. And I think everybody has childhood memories that they're very fond of. But one day we need to enter reality. We have to run our own business. We have to work. I am working at Softworld. I'm responsible for sales. And I can feel that sometimes we forget the beauty of childhood and the dreams that we had. So it takes music of this kind to recall, hey, we really do love games. So today I'd like to share our recording studio, our business with you. I really hope you're not going to think it's very boring, because we are actually a huge group. Many people, when they hear about Softworld, they think that we are just a gaming company. We were established 40 years ago, and most of our games are related to martial arts. But later on, we also then became an agent for this kind of game. For example, Shinganshen is one of the games that many people know about. And we have developed many well-known games. Softworld continues to be one of the biggest distributors of games in Taiwan. We serve many big and small gaming companies. We develop games. We produce gaming music. We also have many digital platforms. So we are a very, very big conglomerate. Here you will see the services that we offer. One of the services, as you will read here, is we have our own recording studio. Many people are not aware that we also offer a recording studio here in Kaohsiung. And it is a very large recording studio. 12 years ago, when Softworld was at the height of its gaming business, where we had 10, 12 games being launched each year. And some of them I think you are very familiar with. They're still very, very favored. And yesterday, one of the speakers, who is a music producer, mentioned that every week back then they had to come up with over 70 tracks. So our recording studio has had a long tradition. We have extensive experience in the music business. We have composers, 2 actually. We also have sound effect technicians, mixing technicians, and as well as other co-workers. I am responsible for the sales and marketing side of our recording studio. We don't just work for Softworld, we also outsource our services, and we can produce OSTs, we can produce different kinds of music. We not only use our recording studios for our own music, other people can also come and rent our recording studios if they are producing their own music. We also do many kinds of scores. Some of our composers are here in the audience. Due to the confidentiality clause, I can't disclose all of our clients. But I can say that right now we are also involved in a Harry Potter related project, a game where we are involved in producing scores for this game. So we know that this is a game that is going to be very well loved. At the same time, we offer a variety of genres. We can make Chinese classical music as well. So our composers are extremely talented. When it comes to gaming sound effects, I want to tell you that very often when we are creating music for games, our music and sound effect technicians are able to work side by side so that you won't have the music overriding the sound effects of the music. So we have an excellent team at our disposal. We have a huge music library as well. We've been compiling a catalog, and recently Square Enix has also been compiling their library of music. So we're following suit. We're really hoping our recording studio, Softworld, will be a huge music library for old Chinese songs. And we hope that we can also share it with players all over the world. So this is one of the things that we're busy with right now. I mentioned that our recording studio is huge. It is probably the biggest in southern Taiwan. I don't want to say it's the biggest in Taiwan, but it's definitely the biggest in southern Taiwan. I've selected 2 photos to show you the interior. Our studios are around 50 ping in size. We also have a very good musical instruments, a world-class piano, and you can fit at least 50 to 100 performers in our recording studio. So in general, we also rent out our facilities to outside musicians. There is a very, very busy roster. And because we have a lot of space, we are also able to shoot music videos. 2 days ago, actually, in the same space, we were hosting the Golden Melody Award Masterclass. So in addition to the big recording studio you saw, we also have 6 medium to small-sized recording studios. And in recent years, we've seen a new kind of business, that is the recording of podcasts. So very often in southern Taiwan, if people want to have podcasts, they come to our recording studios. We also do a lot of ASMR recordings. So if you have any requests, you can come to us as well. We also have 2 control centers, and one can accommodate 16 tracks and another 40-some tracks. So it's possible at any one time to have 3 groups at our recording studio. Sometimes it's actually really fun because we could be having an orchestra playing in one recording studio, a podcast in another, and ASMR happening in another. So this is very much a part of our daily life. I mentioned in addition to our own games, we also are a platform for other kinds of games. We also provide sound effect services as well as music production services. So we are looking for partners and clients. Even though we are an old company in years, but we really want to serve a younger clientele, especially game developing companies as well as multimedia companies. We are really well versed in the area of music production. So we hope that in the discussion period, I will have a chance to introduce more of our services to you. Here are some of our clients. And you can see in terms of orchestras, there are some very well-known orchestras, national orchestras, and who are our customers. There's also many professors. And in addition, we have companies from China. NetEase is very, very well known, as well as gaming companies such as XS Games, as well as Brocent. We also have Falanity, and internationally we work with Disney Plus. So if you're a subscriber to Disney Plus, you know the first day it came to Taiwan, they had the top musician Ame perform together with other indigenous Taiwanese tribes. There was also a choir, and usually these children are singing in the mountains in their tribes. But that day they came to our recording studio in Kaohsiung, and together with Ame, they performed as well as we recorded their musical collaboration for the opening of Disney Plus. Due to the time constraint, I won't be able to go into a lot of detail. However, I hope that you have a brief idea of what Softworld is about. If you are looking for musicians, if you are looking for a recording studio in Kaohsiung, I'm sure you will be able to find something with us. Thank you. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation, George. Through your presentation, we're able to see your past, present, and future. Many of the games that are related to wuxia, I am suddenly, it took me down memory lane. I finally recalled that I actually did play those games before, so I really hope you have a chance to talk to George. The next speaker we would like to introduce is Alan Yu. He is the team lead from TOII Games. Let's welcome him. Actually, he has a very interesting background. He has been abroad and he studied game design in New York's University. I think you're actually very active on social media, right? Because I did a search online and I understand you actually even have a podcast, and you do a lot of game design and AR. So you've actually traveled extensively. I'm sure you're able to tell us why you chose AR as your main gaming feature. So we can't wait to hear from you, Alan. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to talk with you all. There are so many people who are from the gaming industry here, so I would like to take a little time to tell you about my work. Actually, I originally wanted to just do games that you could play on cell phones. However, we realized that people love using their cameras, and AR was this new technology that allowed you to see something that other people couldn't see. So this was something that we could see people being very, very interested in. So all of our games incorporate AR. We also know if we are playing location-based game, you want to be able to quickly get to another place. For example, if you think about your elementary school, did it have some kind of haunted story? For example, at a certain corner, behind a certain statue, there were some scary ghost stories. So we thought that we could incorporate that into location-based games. So I would like to introduce to you a game that we are trying to promote right now. I think many of you are musicians in the audience. So perhaps as a gamer, you will get a sense of what we care about. I think that will be a useful exchange. And the game I want to talk about is this one, where we're taking real people and then putting it in AR and using location-based scouting. And some of the things that we require when we are working with music producers is first we want them to know what our game is about, what is the narrative. We also want you to know our cast. We know that when the protagonists come out, you definitely need some kind of signature, and music is a very good way of doing this. We also want our producers to know that this piece of music is going to belong to this kind of environment or this kind of scenario. Another thing we want music producers to know is, in addition to putting our music in games, we also sometimes want to upload our music to Spotify and other music platforms. So this is something to keep in mind. We are actually not publishing or issuing these songs ourselves. We're working through an agent, but it's still very important at the outset for music producers to know the format. Because sometimes if we're looking at a game that's played on a cell phone, the sound quality may not be as high, but you still need to keep in mind that later the music may still be available on a streaming platform. So it needs to have very good quality. Furthermore, we know that gaming is very different from films and TV series. Sometimes players are listening to a song on a game 100 times, so it's very important for the song to be capable of re-listen.
We would also send these kind of messages to composers or musicians because the storyboard probably is not comprehensive enough, so we would send them some references for further discussions. This is the outline of the story, so even if you've never played our games, but if you look at some of the key terms, you probably have a better idea of the synopsis of the game. And with these key terms, one would be able to imagine what kind of style of music that would appear. So with these kind of descriptions or explanations, the musician would have a better understanding of what kind of music to compose for different characters. There would also be a mood board because when we give the musicians these mood boards, they can create music that would be appropriate for different colors or different scenes. Okay, the resolution is very low here, although it should have been in high definition. But anyway, this is one of the scenes, and this is a visual aid that we would provide to the musician. So when you can see a very clear photo, you can imagine what it is like. But if this is so pixelized, you would probably produce MIDI music in it rather than high HD music. And we would also put this into a real scene in the game. When you see this kind of color palette or this kind of scene, you have a better idea of the music that you would compose. This is another example. This is what we wish musicians to know. First of all, we wish that the musicians would, of course, read the synopsis of the game. Otherwise, if they don't know the plot, it would be difficult for them to come up with better music. Secondly, we think that it needs to suit the artistic visuals, for example, whether it's a fantasy or not. Thirdly, at least you need to know how the game is being played. We might need a lot of loops if someone is in an open field or there's a lot of main screens. It's more atmospheric. We don't want the player to feel that there's a lot of cognitive load. And of course, we also hope that the composers or the musicians would have the experience of playing the games so that they have a better understanding of how to better compose the music. Then we will give them, we will receive an A copy from the musicians, and then we can edit later. So I think it's very important for musicians to play the games. We would really recommend the musicians to play the games. Yes, there would be musicians who have a lot of experiences in composing for TV series, but I think this is very different from, for example, comic books or from games. So we need to adapt, but at the same time, each kind of genre is very different from the other one. The second suggestion is about knowing more about the acoustics field. For example, there are a lot of now more and more games that utilize VR technology, so you need to know more about acoustics. And for horror stories, maybe, for example, once the monster is closer to you, the volume of the drums would be higher and the rhythm would be faster. If you've ever played The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, it's similar to what I said. When you're closer to the monster, then there will be more contour in the music. Gaming music is also different from film music, so we don't necessarily have to have a very vertical alignment with the visual. It's not as the same as film music. I also see that there's an emerging trend. A lot of musicians would incorporate traditional music. I think gaming music is also part of soft power. So last year, if you look at the Tokyo Olympics, they actually played different kinds of music from video games, for example, Final Fantasy or Olympus Coliseum. So, it really stirs a lot of emotions. So, this is a great example. It's, of course, a clip from when you're victorious. So I think this actually elicited a lot of memories. So this is my presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Alan. I think a lot of the presentations are really interesting. I searched for a lot of his videos, and he spoke so fast that I don't have to fast forward the videos. I think what he mentioned about not needing to align the music with the visual is very important, because if you're too precise, actually, the gamers will find it to be too intense. And I think for gamers, you'll probably have to play that game for 100 and 200 times. So it really needs to be durable in a way. So thank you, Alan, for that reminder. Now our third speaker. Before he comes up to the stage, let me briefly introduce him. His name is Lingyue Han, and he is the producer of Pagui at Pandaden. And I think in 2017, some of his students asked him, if you've never been an entrepreneur, how can you tell us that we're going to succeed when we found our company? So he said, okay, then let me try it. And he is also the producer of Pagui. It's actually a true story, and I've actually played Pagui as well, and I think it's very, very authentic. And so let's welcome Yue Han Lin. Thank you. This video clip is a premiere in Taiwan, and I think this is great timing. Next month would be the lunar month of the ghost, so we hope that we will be able to launch the game during the month of the ghost. And the music is from the Blood Mixer, and this is one of their latest songs. So I would like to briefly talk about how I worked with the company and the band called Flesh Juicer. When I wanted to write for this game, I thought it was serendipity because I was teaching at Jiayi University in southern Taiwan. I was buying a lunchbox one day, and then I was waiting at the restaurant, at the diner, and then there were a convoy of traditional musicians passing by, celebrating, a religious event. In the past, I would cover my ears because there would be firecrackers, it would be very loud, and it seems that the people who are participating in this convoy, in this parade, are all from gangs. And so I thought that maybe they were heading towards the haunted house in Jiayi, one of the very famous scenic spot in Mingshong, a haunted house in Mingshong. But then somehow, I don't know why, it kind of like stuck with me it stuck in my memory. When I was teaching at Jiayi University, I started to kind of think about whether or not I should return to writing music for games. So it seems that that convoy actually planted a seed, and I started doing field studies. I started to listen to traditional music. I started visiting temples. I started visiting the haunted house in Mingshong. This is actually quite strange for me because I grew up in a Christian family. If you look at this, game, they used Taiwanese Hokkien, but I'm actually from a Hakka family. So we're very, very diverse, very, very inclusive. And so I thought that if we're going to do field study, it's going to be quite a large-scale study. What do we do with the music? So I kind of got stuck. If I want to be able to produce this game, I had to really know more about the music because I don't have such a background. When I was small, I listened to, for example, Western classical music or Japanese anime music. And I think we've all been influenced by Western classical music or Japanese anime music. But if you want to really include local elements, Taiwanese elements, we suddenly run out of any ideas. So I was talking to some of my colleagues, and they introduced Flesh Juicer to me. I don't know Flesh Juicer, and it's actually an indie hard rock band, and I never heard Flesh Juicer before, but they've actually been established for 7 or 8 years already back then. So I went on to YouTube and listened to their music, and I was so astonished. It's really hardcore. I didn't think I would be able to actually listen to the entire video clip. But then I went through the different clips and found one that really opened up my horizon, opened my ears. It's called 打开太阳, Opening the Sun. It's really very interesting. It seemed to have opened my third eye, so that's why it kind of clicked with what I saw, what you just saw. It's kind of synthesized a new genre of music. I was, I felt that there was a stream of inspiration. And when inspiration strikes you, it only exists for a few seconds. So you have to immediately, jot it down. I think all creators have experienced this in the past. If you don't have a pen beside you and recorded the inspiration down, it's going to be gone forever. And after I listened to Opening the Sun, that song, I heard their other song called Closing the Sun. It's actually kind of funny because I searched for Opening the Sun, the song, and actually the image was Teletubbies. It's actually very strange, but I only focused on the music. I wasn't disturbed by the Teletubbies. So I started to find ways to contact Flesh Juicer. I finally found their contact. They're actually quite young, only a few years younger than I am. And they're actually experimenters. Although they're not, gamers, they're not, from the gaming industry. But they were interested, so I went to Taichung City and played the video of the game to them. And there were 6 or 7 people in the band. And after watching the clip, they agreed to work with me. So I was very, very happy and excited at the same time. Maybe it's because we're all content creators. So I brought the world of visuals to them, and they brought the world of audio to me. And once we, discover that we have the same wavelength, then we're able to hit it and really work together. So I was able to work with Flesh Juicer. At that time, I didn't know much about, Taiwanese history. And one of my Facebook friends video recorded, about 16 counts of one of the bands, and I was also very inspired, and I was able to find the contact of that band. But this team is even further away from gaming because they are film and TV series producers. So I also presented the visuals and the images to them, but they also agreed. They agreed to work with me. They thought that I was very keen in integrating traditional culture with technology. So although they're musicians and I'm from the gaming sector, I was able to convince them. So I did not know this song called Lilium, but I thought it was very suitable to be used in Pagui. And I thought about where to put this song. But most of the characters already have their own music, so I was thinking about how to integrate it. So I thought that because there's a scene in the game where there's a traditional radio, and if you have to switch on the video on the radio, and the music would flow from the radio. So I thought that was a great place to insert the music. But the vocalist actually had a very young voice. It's a very naive and very young voice. I remember that the vocalist was still a university student. And when I heard the vocal, I thought it was really unique because the voice was able to express, the kind of timbre that was more popular in the 50s and 60s. But he also had a flash of humor in his voice. So I thought it was very interesting. So I thought it was really interesting that I had this opportunity to work with all of them. So this is basically how I've worked with bands. Thank you.
好奇这是当初有跟
Did you also work with Mr. Ko Zihao? Yes, actually, this second edition that you just saw the trailer of, it also has Mr. Ko Zihao's creation. I have to say that he is exhausted after working together with us. You don't have to worry. He's really, really resilient. We were so successful with the first edition that we had a lot of anticipation when it came to the second one. So it's as long, the music album or the music is as long as the length of a film. So we have a total of 30 tracks. When are we going to be able to actually play the game? As I said, when the month of the ghost starts, you know that it is probably around the end of July. On the lunar calendar, you will be able to play our game. Wow, we can't wait. I think we can see that there are still some similarities between games and films, that the narrative needs to be very clear. So we can't wait for the game Paguai to come to the market. Now I'd like to introduce our next speaker to you, Su Yubo. And he is somebody who's truly working on music scores in different kinds of games. So he likes to call himself the invisible hand in games. I like the fact that he makes the music not the main or the center of the game. Rather, it is an accessory, yet something essential, because for every game, if you don't have music, then something essential is missing. So let's welcome Yu Bo from Turn Sound Music. Hello, everybody. Before I begin, I would just like to say that I was actually in one of the photos in the previous presentation. When I was still a student, I actually participated in a field study. And we went to the biggest recording studio in Kaohsiung. And actually, that was Soft World, the first presenter. So I have to say that it's really a small world. I saw myself in a photograph quite by accident. Well, today I want to talk about the invisible hand in games. Games like movies, they have a very strong narrative, and music is there to serve the visuals, to serve the game. So we're taking something almost invisible and trying to make the visual or the game better. Here are some of the games that I've worked on before. Well, I've worked for a long time with Spotlight. And you can see that there are 3-4 games here that are quite popular. On Steam, I also worked on a game called Panty Party. It's quite interesting. Basically, the characters are just a bunch of panties. There's no person in the game. It's just a bunch of panties that battle each other. So when I first got this storyline, I was really perplexed. What is Panty Party? And I saw that there was a description of a lace panty and a different kind of panty. And later on, I realized that this was just about the battle between panties. So a lot of my projects are actually really weird, but wonderful too. Many of you in the audience are probably people who write music scores and produce music. And I'd like to talk a little bit about my own workflow. First, of course, I'm going to take the brief from the client and think about what is going to be the theme or the style of my music. And the customer could maybe give me a description, a written description. They could also perhaps give me a script. And then they may have a few words about the kind of music that they're looking for. The second thing I do is I try and allocate music to this specific game. If you look at a lot of the famous games, They probably have very, very big budget music allocation. They may have an orchestra playing. Whereas if we're looking at indie games, maybe what is more suitable is something that is just instrumentation or just a piano or just a voice. So I'll think then about what am I going to do to bring this game to life. The third thing I do is I prepare the demo. It doesn't matter if we go into the recording studio or if we use MIDI, I will make a decision. And then the fourth part of my workflow is very important. It is the final mixing and mastering. Somebody mentioned that sometimes the game may only be played on cell phones, but you also need to be prepared that this music could one day be uploaded onto streaming platforms. So you need to communicate all of this ahead of time. You need to know ultimately what is the client's expectations. I try as much as I can to meet the client's requirements and make sure that they are getting the sound quality that they're after. I also want to share with you, after working for so long in the industry, what are some of the complaints that I often hear about. First thing is gaming companies say, this is not the style that I'm after. They will tell me, well, we've already given you a sample, but why does it sound wrong? And sometimes to the producer, you're not sure what is actually the problem. For me, everything goes back to communication. Because we know that listening is quite subjective. What you consider romantic may not be romantic to someone else. Perhaps to the listener, they will feel that this piece of music is not romantic enough. Because everybody has a different definition of romantic. So it's very important to talk to the gamers, talk to the developers, and understand precisely what are they looking for. And it's important to revise and communicate again and again until you find something that the customer truly is happy with. This is my workflow when it comes to communication with the client. I think everybody has their own way of communication, but I wanted to share with you some of my own lessons learned. The first thing that I usually do is I want to join the game team as early as possible. There are pros and cons in this, but I really believe the earlier I join the team, the easier I will be able to build rapport with the producer of the game. The producer may have their own references, and by joining in the discussion early on, I may also have some impressions and ideas. So right at the outset, we will begin with communication. If I join much later on, there is usually the problem of time pressure. When there is time pressure, you can't really take your time. In that instance, you usually have to just compromise. So if you are able to join earlier on, then you have ample time to find the right type of music for the game. The second thing I usually do is if I can join early on, then I can also ask for some resources. We know that trust is at the basis of all success when it comes to collaboration. So after playing the game myself, I can then have an idea of how many musicians I will need and what kind of music to put in this, and ask for those resources, or at least to prepare those resources. So I feel like this stage is like finding a girlfriend. Sometimes when we meet a game developer or a producer, they're hoping that the producer will say, you have a free hand, you can do whatever you want. But just like with a girlfriend, if she said, you choose the restaurant, I'm okay with everything, you know that in the end, they are not okay with everything. So it's very important to talk to the producer and really, really know what they're thinking about. The third thing is you need to be able to give feedback. Do this courageously. Everybody seems to be very easygoing, but if you think something is not right, it's important as a producer to provide feedback. I've mainly worked with independent games, and in that kind of situation, you have a long relationship with the game producer. So it's important to be candid and forthright. As musicians, sometimes we're quite subjective. And for the game developer, they want to have a resounding success, so they have a lot of attachment to their game. So they can also have an idea of what they think the right music is. So it's important to be able to take feedback and to go back and revise in order to come up with the best product. And the last thing that's important is to think about whether you want to go the licensing path or what's the revenue model. Do you want royalty? What is the business model? In what way can you safeguard your interests as well as that of the developer? You may think that this is something that's hard to broach, but actually, the earlier you communicate about it, I think it makes everything much more smooth sailing in the long run. Here you can see some of the cost considerations when we are producing music. Yesterday, I was listening to the workshop on film and TV series. And I realized that even in budgeting of TV series, they have the same problem with budgeting. Very often, the client doesn't know how much something's going to cost. So maybe investors will tell you, we want such and such songs. But actually, it's very, very costly. So you need to provide them with a budget, and you need to manage expectations. We know that generally the rule of thumb is you're going to go over budget. So when it comes to gaming, I think you have to have realized there is going to be a trade-off. You probably can keep the things that are most important to the game, and then sacrifice some of the other not so important things. When it comes to sound effects for games, some people will feel, well, this is not the most important part of a game. But as a gamer myself, I feel that sound effects sometimes is even more important than music. If you're in a fighting game, when you hit something, you really want to have a great sound effect so you can feel the punch. That sense of hitting another person's flesh, there should be the right sound effect. So I will often tell the game producer, I think we should keep these sound effects, and if we have some extra money, then we can add in music here. You should always keep that which is the most important in the game. And then, of course, there are some real life considerations. Because of budget, are you going to have a live recording, or are you going to use MIDI? Some people really want the best, but you have to compromise. I mentioned I usually work with indie game companies. So live recording, is it always necessary? Is it really going to add value to your game? And what about the style of music that you're after? Is it the kind that is suited to live recording? I think as the music producer, we can provide our expert knowledge to our client so that they know what's necessary or unnecessary. Not everything needs to be a live recording. We still need to think about our budget allocation. In one of the games that I was involved in, we had to make that decision. This game was located under the ocean, and I tried to research other games under the ocean, and I found that many similar games had no sound effect or music. So I came up with a conclusion that for games of this kind, you just need very basic sound effect. You don't actually need a lot of music. So we came up with 3-4 versions. Let me share with you a little bit about what we finally came up with in terms of this under the ocean game.
So this is the theme music of Pronti because it talks about the marine environment. It's more about environmental protection. So this is like the journey of the mind. And I created this music. When I was recording it, I used a smaller string orchestra. And I thought that a smaller orchestra would suit Pronti better. We don't need a really large-scale orchestra. Of course, budget is also a concern. I'm going to go through this very quickly, the production process of sound effects. Of course, you can use sources or you can use other materials, and sometimes you can, of course, record the actual sound. So, for example, my colleagues, they went to Canada. When they went to Canada, they recorded all the sounds in the forests of Canada. So you can build your own sound effect database or library. So with this, we can mix with other things. So you can come up with sound effects that are suitable for the games. So let me conclude with this summary. I think mutual respect and trust is very important when you're working with the gaming companies or when gaming companies are working with musicians. So when you're signing a contract, make sure that all the provisions and terms on the contracts have been really thought out, and you really have to discuss the details. And when everything on the contract is agreed upon, then you sign the contract. Secondly, you really have to believe in each other. If the producer trusts you, then they would be more willing to accept your suggestions because they believe in you, they trust you, and building trust can actually also minimize the setbacks during communication. Sometimes you need to be very careful. If the producer trusts you, then I think communication will be much smoother. Thirdly, you also need to give each other enough space. We're all artists or creators, and sometimes I think when artists are creating their own works, they would think that this is their brainchild, and everybody would be more insistent. But I think we should give each other space, because maybe your counterpart have already written the plot, they have the script, they have an imagined kind of soundscape, so you really can't force them to accept what you have, and your subjectivity might not necessarily be ideal. So I think it's important to listen to each other, and I think this would probably be better for cooperation. I think this would actually be beneficial to the entire product or the result. So I think if you remember these, you will probably be able to come up with a better result. And then it's a congratulations. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Su. I think it is very important to strike a balance between the two. Sometimes, the producer and the composer are like friends, but they're also like foes, because if you do not trust each other and you think that what has been created is not suitable, then you're like a foe. But if you can find, a long-term outsourced partner, then that would be very beneficial, and you can, of course, learn from each other. Let's welcome our fifth speaker. This is actually very interesting. We actually had a chat, and both of us like cyberpunk. We also talked about Silverblade 2049. This speaker, he is Ted Zhang. He's the founder of Barebone. He's also a game producer. Barebone is actually established by 5 students, and they have come up with very interesting games. So let's see how Ted and Barebone was able to use Taiwan's contemporary culture and science fiction elements to create games. Let's welcome Ted. Hi, my name is Ted Zhang, and I think I'm probably the least experienced among all the speakers today. And of course, most of us want to make a profit, but currently our company are still developing our first product. So since we're sharing experiences today, I think I'm not able to really share any success stories, but I think I can share with you some of our thoughts, what kind of things we need, what things we do not know yet. So let me introduce my game to you first. Our game is called Minds Beneath Us. It's a text-based adventure game, and the players will explore the city of Taipei, or actually the city of Wanbei, and the characters' choice will affect the plot as well. So here, this is Taiwan in the future. I'm going to show you a clip of the game.
那以上就
So this is just a video of our game, and this story is based in Taipei in the future, in 2049. And AI will probably dominate a lot of resources in the future, and that is why a lot of people became unemployed. I think this is something that many people are predicting. But then a company invented this technology where they can hypnotize people, make them sleep, and they can actually, this technology would leverage the brains of these hypnotized people to use it as a machine to do algorithms. And so this person would be put to sleep for 10 years, and after they awake, they would actually receive a compensation, lump sum compensation. So this is actually something that is relevant to social issues. And I mentioned earlier that a lot of the games, a lot of the plots will be played through dialogue. So you can click on a lot of objects and you will receive information, and these would be helpful when you proceed with the games. For example, if someone told you, a character told you that they don't have a daughter, but then you see that there's a picture that he took with his daughter, then you will be able to see through his lies. But this is different from other text-based games because we hope that the dialogues can be interactive. Traditionally, games like these would emphasize on the choices. So it's like a branching decision branch. But we hope that all the results are not that obvious, meaning that, for example, if you're going to talk to someone, they will not betray you because of one sentence that you said. Maybe it's because you've interacted with that person for 2 or 3 days and they decided to betray you. So we hope that it's a little bit more complex. And I hope that we also hope that your values would decide the direction of the story. What's more relevant to today's theme is that we have incorporated a lot of elements from Taiwan. In recent years, a lot of works from Taiwan focuses on Taiwan's culture, but I've always grown up in Taiwan City, so I really lack an understanding of these local elements. So I was thinking about what I can do to, promote local culture. And I think contemporary culture is something that is also part of local culture, but it has not yet been incorporated into games. Most people would think about traditional folklore or religion, or, for example, in Japan, it's about ninjas and samurais or cowboys in the US. But I think these elements, both Japan and the United States, they do have traditional culture elements, but they also have a lot of contemporary culture. So I think we can also incorporate contemporary culture. I think Korea is really strong here because K-pop is so popular around the world now, and their content creators seems to have come up with a particular style that leverages contemporary culture in Korea, and I think we can learn from them. We also want to create a more cinematic narrative, although, of course, our camera lens, our cameras, the angles of our camera angles actually are more limited due to budget. But I think we can still explore cinematic narrative. Okay, these are our achievements. Although this is in English, but basically they're all our awards here in Taiwan. One is an award here actually in Kaohsiung called Young Pin Design, and also Bahamut's ACG Award. So Bahamut, of course, very, very famous, and all of the jurors are designers. So we currently have 7 members in our team. Although you saw that most of the images are in landscape mode, but we also hope to try and make sure that it can also be adapted to portrait mode, and we also use a lot of hand painting. And regardless of the type of game, we hope to touch upon social issues and current affairs so that we can create a more relatable story. As for music, we're currently working with an overseas composer, but we really don't have a lot of experience. And when we were looking for a music producer, we found that music is a very professional field, and a lot of things have to do with how much money we have. So while I was listening to the other panelists, I learned that, you can only do so much with so much money. So during the financing period, we found that there was actually an overseas composer who's willing to work with us for free. So we're now currently in a negotiation stage. But I think just like what I've said earlier, we're actually very inexperienced. I don't know what's the best approach. For example, the issue of copyright, we really don't know that much yet. We don't know whether or not this is, are we exploiting the composers, and without prior experience, it seems that we're still trying to explore our way forward. And as I said earlier, that we want to incorporate Taiwanese elements, although we're working with a overseas composer, but we still want to incorporate these local elements. So as we heard earlier, the speakers before me have talked about incorporating or working with local bands or indie bands. And I hope that this will be our future direction, because I think indie bands here in Taiwan actually do incorporate a lot of Taiwanese elements into their works. And I think that this is the direction that we want to go. Thank you. Well, thank you, Ted, for your presentation. I think you mentioned some questions or some issues that actually is very relevant to all of us. So they established their studio in 2019, and if they want to launch their games in 3 or 4 years, I think it usually takes about that much time. Some of the people that I know take actually 4 or 5 years before they can launch their games, especially for indie companies. They would have to exchange resources with other companies. So feel free to talk to our musicians, your peer musicians here, and I'm sure that they will be able to give you some very good suggestions. Our last speaker today is very interesting. I think he's an entrepreneur. His name is Nightcore Hong. He's the president of Mars Cat, and I actually have played their game before. They actually have very interesting and famous games called Grand Fantasia Online. If you've ever been to Sintren Creative Park in Taipei, you probably have seen very interesting shop fronts. And I think it's very interesting because they have a very clear purpose. They want to combine online and offline experiences. Many people think that offline and online are two different worlds, but for Mars Cat, they are actually working very hard to integrate the two. They're also working with other companies, Mr. Lin Shaoqing, to create OSTs. Let's welcome Nightcore Hong from Mars Cat. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think compared to other speakers, I'm more commercial in a way. But I've produced 14 games, including the latest one called MEOW, Meow. I decided to establish Mars Cat in 2017 because I think that this is the future. So I'm going to very quickly go through an introduction of my company. So we make games, but in addition to making games, we want to do things that have greater potential. Maybe we're not an expert yet, but we hope to explore this. We have 41 employees, and our paid-in capital is about 81 million NT dollars. what we want to insist is everything has to be original. I hope that the talents in Taiwan can work together to create our own original works. I know that the anime market is actually very promising. If you have very loyal fans, then it actually lowers a lot of the costs and actually brings in more profits in the future. So I think it's important to really lock in those fans. So in addition to gaming, online gaming, I also created a company or created a business line that focuses on offline fans. Well, first of all, I think in addition to the Taiwanese market, I hope that our products can be sold worldwide because there are a lot of markets around the world. So I might use iOS or Android to basically create my games. In the past, when it was PC, I had to work with distributors, but now, Apple is going to recommend this for me. For example, RayArc, whether it's Demo or Citus, they actually save a lot of marketing cost. So where's my main battlefield? Well, I'm as a Taiwanese company, of course, I want to have my hometown, my home market in Taiwan, and I hope that this market can be a place where we can showcase our products. For a lot of indie companies, they actually have a very limited amount of opportunities to showcase their works. So if I want to be able to showcase our products, our games, in these limited opportunities, it's going to be very restrictive. And because I think foreign markets are important, Taiwan is actually the world's 6th largest gaming market. So when these companies, overseas gaming companies come to Taiwan, they will want to work with me. And I think developing the offline market in Taiwan is actually very promising. Last year, I worked with some independent game companies, and we had this exhibition at Shinko Mitsukoshi department store. I think this is creating a bigger market, a blue ocean, because we want to focus not only just on the products, but also build a brand.
I think it is only with creating brands you're able to accumulate profit. Otherwise, what you're doing is starting over constantly. And I found that music was actually the ideal medium. When I was working in Japan a few years before, we saw many of these restaurants where they used cosplay as well as music. So it's based on a fan economy. Your friends are involved. It creates a community. You don't need so much content creation. So that's how I began. Initially, I lost a lot of money. However, I kept learning through trial and error. So now we have special meals, many merchandise, as well as we work with VTubers in Taiwan. In Taiwan, it's very important not to focus on niche markets. I can cite an example. 20 years ago, when coffee first came to Taiwan, everybody felt that you needed to drink pull-through coffee, very artisanal coffee. But I hope that we can take gaming and turn it into Starbucks. So I think rather than focus on the niche, be like the Starbucks, where you can actually think about reaching a very, very wide audience. Here are some of our offline activities. And what I decided to do was I decided to do a lot of crossover. I worked with dancers, people in the comic industry. A lot of people don't like to play games that are 3 years old, whereas music is very, very different. People like certain music and they will listen to it over and over again. So what I did was I looked for artists that would stand the test of time. You can see the 3 artists that I worked with here. They are very different. One is in the realm of classical music. One is much more of a hip-hop artist. And I started to do crossover collaboration. We know that music is one thing that can last 5 years, 10 years, whereas games need to be revised constantly. So for me, I started to focus on accumulating IP. Here you can see some of my restaurants. We had great performers and creators who performed on stage, and we can work together. We can help market them. Of course, if you're going to focus on IP, you need to first have a lot of capital. Recently, I have a new game, and it's been doing really well. I last heard that it is probably the #1 most downloaded game. And this is our new game called Nightcore. So like I said, I try and bring a lot of crossover collaboration. We also focus on animation. I'm not sure how many of you are actually creators, musicians, or are you game developers in the audience. But I would just like to remind everyone that Taiwan is very talented when it comes to music. We know that even in the Greater China region, when they need music, they will recruit talent from Taiwan. I used to work as a talent agent. So I know where Taiwan's strengths are. A lot of times in Taiwan, even though people know the importance of music, they are not willing to pay for music. So that's something I would like to urge game developers. You need to be generous when it comes to working with musicians. This is something that I learned, and it contributed to my success. A lot of people feel that if I'm playing games on my cell phone, I can just use recycled music. But that's the wrong idea, because today, what you're hoping to do, because the startup costs on a cell phone is almost zero. So it's important that you come up with the best music. Don't save money on the music. So I believe what we need to do right now in Taiwan is, after the game has been developed, we also show that we cared a lot about the quality of the music and the sound effects. Only when we can grow the pool, only then can we have more talent and more income and revenue for everyone. And when there is greater revenue, that means more people can join. So it is a benevolent cycle. So right now in Taiwan, I feel that gaming music has not really received the attention it deserves. So for the game developers in the audience, please pay attention to the music. Especially we had such a wonderful opening performance. I think you made a very important point. We know that in pop music, when an artist receives a lot of attention, then there is a lot of resources that go towards their music. So we need to remember that when it comes to gaming music. And you've developed many other business models out of the gaming model, and you are cultivating a fan economy. I think that's amazing because you're basically willing to take the risk right off the bat. And I would like to ask, where did you come up with the courage to take such a gamble? Because I already had 14 games under my belt, so my experience taught me a lot. The speaker before me was starting on his first game. I think it's very important not to just expect to be successful in the beginning. So you have to think at the back of your mind whether this game is going to help you or at least give you enough money so that you can start the second game. So you need to think about finding investors. So this is a step-by-step progress. Don't put all your eggs onto the first game. Just do it without being worried about whether you're going to make a success. I have another suggestion that I have for creatives in the audience. Very often we know that artists and businessmen, they have differences of opinion. I think it's very important for businessmen or investors to be empathetic to the creators, because creators care a lot about their product. As investors, all you need to do is honestly reflect what you don't want. You need to really respect the creator and the artist. They have their own style, their own workflow. So when they're looking at your game, they have their own take on it. So you only need to tell them what you don't want, and then give them a lot of freedom to create. For the game that I'm releasing this year, we wanted something much more fast-paced. We wanted a countdown at the end of each game. And the only thing I told my music producer was, at the end, I wanted this countdown effect. The rest, I gave him full license. So I really want to ask game developers, don't think by outsourcing you mean that you are the dictator. You need to allow artists to create, and then they will come up with something that is beyond your expectation. Thank you. This concludes my presentation. Thank you, Nako. I think this is the problem for a lot of musicians. Very often we feel like we're only someone that's doing outsourced labor, but we hope to get respect. We hope to be treated equally when we are with game developers. And today we're glad that we finally have this opportunity to hear everybody's views. Are there any questions from the floor? I think because of time constraint, we may not be able to entertain many questions. But let's open the floor. Okay, there's a question here. everybody. I am a game developer, and today I would like to pose a question because this is something that our company has run across. We saw incredible visuals as well as amazing gaming music, but I was curious for PV. How did you manage to work with the music producer? Also for Mars Cat, we heard that it's important to invest money in the music. So when we're looking at trailers, do you have some suggestions on how we can make sure that the trailer emphasizes the music, and what are some of the do's and don'ts for the OST for a game? Okay, I think let's start with New World. Thank you for that question. Our producer is actually right in the audience, so I can share a little bit about what we do. We have many PVs under our belt, and the way we work with the animation department is once we get the script, we make sure that it gets into the hands of the music producer. And once there is the script, we will look at where the touch points are, where music needs to be added. And I think this is very similar to the film industry when they're producing a score. When you're looking at trailers, you will see that the score is used, but the touch points are a little different. So I think it very much depends on your visuals, what visuals you use in the trailer, and then tailor the score to the visuals that you use in the trailer. Next, let me stand and answer this question. I think I can cite my own experience. When we are producing our PV, I actually did some data collection. For example, for Pagui, we had 2 trailers, but they had very different results. Both of them, we used Flash Juicer music. However, in the first trailer, we only got 50 shares. And the second trailer, we got 1,500 shares. So that's a 30 times difference. Why? And I realized it had to do with the music. The visuals were all amazing, but in the first trailer, even though it was very touching, the music could not incite the endorphins in the mind of the viewer. This is very important. The viewer may be looking at the beautiful visuals, but they don't feel the need to share. They're going more inside rather than outside. Because our first trailer was more sorrowful. It was based on the White Terror period in Taiwan. There were many people being massacred. But in the second trailer, we used the same Flesh Juicer music. We had a very fast-paced, energetic soundtrack. So the rhythm was very different. It made the blood curdle, and as a result, there were so many more shares. So same band, same music, different same visuals. So endorphin is the key point. For our PVs, I think what we do is we usually go to music libraries overseas and we listen to probably thousands of tracks because those are much cheaper. So then we will just get one of the soundtracks we like. And then once we have the music, we look at what the visuals we have are and we fit the visual to the soundtrack. I think if you look at design of game trailers or PV, there is a lot of discussion on bulletin boards. For example, at which point should you use music? What is the message you want to convey? For example, in Steam, they will tell you then include some kind of, you should set up some kind of wish list. So for PVs, I actually think the music is more important for us. We heard people saying that the visual is very important, but actually in our case, we do it the reverse way. Thank you. Mars Cat, do you have any suggestions? I think length. For me, the PV, the trailer has to do with length. Because if you are doing a commercial, 5 to 10 seconds, that's all. You can have a kind of slow kind of storytelling. And then if it's going to be a PV, I think 30 seconds is the best. Usually producers like to put as much as possible in a trailer. They want to say our game has this feature, that feature, but actually for the viewer, they can't absorb it all. So if you're going to be editing, I think choose a theme, just one theme, and have maybe several trailers so that each trailer touches on a different feature. That's much more successful than sticking everything in. So length, I think shorter the better. Okay, so maybe you can take that down, all these very useful suggestions. Any other questions? Or, of course, you can ask each other in private. If I see no other questions, I think we can call it a day. Please stay and talk to the speakers. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. This was a great session. And we really hope that we will have time to talk with everybody afterwards. Thank you, GMA.